Everyone, welcome to this session of the 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge. I am your host, Rebecca Newman, the founder and CEO of the Grow Project. And in this 7-day challenge, we're chatting about what fuels you and what fuels your business growth. And of course, how the two are intricately linked, but often not something that's discussed in business. And today I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Leandra, and we are going to talk about the nervous system, and we're going to talk about the Cosmopolitan Hippy lifestyle. And you, of course, are an amazing businesswoman yourself. You have run multiple practices, won awards, and done all kinds of amazing things. So perhaps, Leandra, you could start off by telling us a bit about yourself, of your amazing wealth of knowledge.
Thanks. So I'm a chiropractor by trade, and my husband and I met while we were in chiropractic school. So he's actually out with my 2 girls at the moment so that I can do this. So we moved to Ireland after we finished chiropractic because we wanted to have a European adventure, and we stayed there for 9 months, worked for 2 people, and it was quite horrific. But we moved back to Australia, and we ended up in Darwin where my mum actually was. So we were offered a bunch of jobs and we said no to all of them because we just thought, you know what, I think we're worth more than that. So the 2 of us with literally no money, we literally had debt from when we were in Ireland. So our loan guy came to visit us at my mum's house, and we said, what can you give us? And he said nothing, just good luck. So we both got part-time jobs. I worked in a health food store and my husband worked at Woolworths stacking shelves, and we started a 1-room clinic in a serviced office. And that was the chiropractic place. And we had no money. So we literally walked the streets, like handing out leaflets saying, hey, we're the new chiropractors in town. We started a website. We're the first one starting a website. So within 4 months, we moved out of our 1-room office. We moved into a 4-room large office on one of the big main streets and quit our jobs. And within 16 months, we won a Telstra Business Award. So, I think it was so banking on yourself. It was actually a pretty good idea. We can't get loans because I've never had a full-time job in Australia. I've always just worked for myself. So
the challenges of business ownership, hey? Always wondering at those certain times when you just need a loan, and how does it work, and what's your forecast, and what's the accountant say?
And so it was funny because when the loan guy came to visit us again, we were in our 3-room practice, going, so we did okay. He was like, it was. And then I had a baby. So then we went through the Telstra Business Awards. I was writing my book and I got pregnant, and so I took the time out of my business, and then my husband took the chiropractic place over. So it was my baby. And once I actually had an actual baby, I came back to the clinic and it sort of wasn't mine anymore. And I need a sandpit. That's just who I am. So in the end, what we did was I started Cosmopolitan Hippy. So
this was the book you, of course, were writing.
That's the first book I wrote.
So which order should we talk in? Should we talk chiropractics first, or should we talk Cosmo Hippy first?
Well, let's talk chiropractic first, because Cosmo Hippy is based on the chiropractic lifestyle. So
awesome. So I love when we're talking about fuel sources and people understanding what's available to them, that we debunk any myths that they have. I would love for you to tell us what chiropractics is.
So in a nutshell, chiropractic is basically good brain-body communication. That's as basic as it is, really. We get a rap as being back pain doctors. We do focus on the spine, but it's because the spine houses the nervous system. So your brain's up here, your body's down here, and the way they communicate is via the spinal column, the spinal cord. So the way we talk about it is if there's misalignments in the spinal column, in your vertebral column, what that does is it becomes like static on a radio. So your brain and your body can't actually communicate properly. So obviously that would make a whole host of problems. So the least of which is pain. Pain, at least you know something's wrong, but most of the time what we talk about is numbness. So if you're numb, you can't even feel anything and you can't function properly. So if you're numb to, say, the stomach, then you're going to be having digestive upsets. If you're numb to, say, like the lungs, then you're going to have breathing difficulties. So yeah, chiropractic is really about the whole and about managing the stresses on your body. So we talk about physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Yeah, and we just talk about being aware of your body and being, just able to hear it. Because if you can't hear your body, then you can't fix your body, and then you can't be the best that you need to be.
So let's talk about those 4 types of stresses, because I guess on the 7-day business fuel challenge, what we've been talking about is things which fuel you up and give you energy credits. And then we've been talking about things which zap you and things that absolutely take your energy away. And I think those 4 categories you speak of are a really good way for people to think about it. So can you jump into those for us?
Well, there's 3. I normally just talk about 3. That's all right. So physical is obviously movement, so sitting, standing, running around. Then we've got chemical, which is pretty much every chemical around us. So we've got the makeup you put on your skin and the skin products and the things you clean your house with, and the food you take and the water you take in. And the last is emotional. So that's what everyone thinks about when they think about stress. So it's, your day-to-day stresses and lives. So for me, it's my toddler at the moment.
So how do you work with all those things? Because I'm not sure, do people come to chiropractic care expecting that you look at all those 3 aspects?
Some do. And I mean, we made it our point in our business in the chiropractic place when I had a clinic to pre-qualify people and for them to understand what we were as chiropractors. So that was a huge thing. We did a lot of social media. We did a lot of blogging and a website to let people know that, look, if you're coming to me, don't come to me if you want to crack and you want to go and you just want pain taken care of, because honestly, a Panadol can take care of your pain. But what we want to do is get to the bottom of why you're feeling this, and actually make you the best you can be. So most people did come to me expecting that I was going to take care of all of these sort of 3. But in general, people think chiropractors are, I've got a sore back, I'll just get a crack, which is never what I was.
So I imagine you find quite a lot of business owners and leaders in the clinic.
Yeah, we did. Also being part of the business community, we were sort of a little bit different and be able to talk to people so we could actually understand. And, we did have a lot of, we were in the CBD as well, so we had a lot of business people. And yes, we found that we liked working with business people because it tended to be that they were like, okay, I'm doing really awesome, but I just need to be doing more awesome. And
let's talk
about
that. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about that and what problems they were facing.
Well, the biggest problem I find that I see most people with is that they can't say no. So they tend to pile their plate higher and higher. And I tend to see a lot of women. My husband used to see the men and I used to see all the girls. So, but that's the biggest problem women have, I see, is especially women. And I mean, most business owners, most people who start businesses are women, because women tend to find that, they see a problem and then they decide to start a business to solve it. But we tend to want to be Wonder Women. We tend to think that we can do it all. So, domestic goddess and fabulous food and this gorgeous house and dressing well and running a business and having children and doing everything. And it's a fallacy. You can't do it all. You can have it all, you just can't do it all. So, I mean, that's the biggest problem I see, is that people they're just like, I have to. No, you don't have to. You just need to prioritize. So, I mean, it's funny because the amount of people who cry in my office because, they get in there and they offload everything. And chiropractic is kind of like your old school GP, really. When you used to just go to your GP for a chat to offload things and, say, hey, this is happening in my life. How can I deal with that? Well, yeah, you don't get that anymore. And chiropractic sort of is that now.
I think that's really interesting because it's like the spaces where you go and you have those moments where you can reflect and you can pause and you can actually get what's going on in your head out to somebody. And I think part of the reason in the Grow Project is that we don't align ourselves with a particular modality in the health space is because people will connect for different reasons with different peoples and different people and different modalities. And whilst chiropractics will work for one, another modality might work for another. I just really wanted to highlight that connection of how chiropractics works for people. Can you tell me about some of the other problems you face, your clients are facing?
That's the biggest one. But see, I haven't practiced for a little while, so I'm a bit like,
But like people you
remember.
meet even in the business, you know, generally what problems are people finding in growing their businesses that you come across, whether they're in the Cosmo hippie world or
Burnout is a big one as well, is that, you know, not putting yourself first and not nourishing yourself, and actually like literally the time you take off is when you're on the floor, and it's not really useful for anyone. So, I mean, I used to do it myself. I used to like push myself 6 days a week, just, you know, at bullet a gate constantly, and then you'd spend Sunday pretty much flat on your back doing nothing. And unfortunately, that's really not the best way to live. It stresses your body too much. You've got too much fight or flight. Like our bodies aren't actually geared towards that. We're pretty much geared towards, you know, laying fairly like horizontal for most of the time and conserving our energies. So it's, yeah, burnout's a big one. And the more that they keep doing that, and like, you know, you can probably only go like that for about 6 months before you completely collapse in a heap, and then you're no good to anyone. So,
and I guess those two things compound each other. Can't say no and headed straight for burnout, not looking after yourself. So how did the Cosmo hippie side of things come about? Because I imagine that it probably addresses both of those things.
It does. So obviously, after having my daughter, I wasn't practicing as much anymore. And I always wanted to change the world. So I realized a small clinic in Darwin wasn't really going to do it for me. So I wrote the book because my clients kept asking me, they're like, well, you know, you wear makeup and you wear nice clothes and, you know, you don't really look like a hippie, but you really do live like a hippie lifestyle. And yeah, I found that people were saying things like to me, well, it's just so hard. Like, it's so hard to know what to buy. And, you know, I've always been buying that and I've always been doing that. And it's just hard to change. It's like, well, it's not really hard to change. So hence why Cosmopolitan Hippy came about, which was the fact that you can have this sort of cosmopolitan lifestyle, you know, like cocktails and green smoothies. Like you can have it all. It's just, you know, being out there and connecting with brands and, you know, understanding how to have it all. So
let's talk about the Cosmo hippie lifestyle and what is in your book. Let's talk about some of the principles of your book.
So I talk about the 3 stresses, obviously, of chemical, physical, and emotional. And I talk about things. So physical stuff. So I talk about how sitting's the new smoking. I talk about how to wear high heels properly, because you can just, you know, you just can't wear them all the time. And there are certain ones. And then I talk about, you know, with chemical, I talk about how much water you should be drinking, which is, you know, really important. I touch a little bit on food in the first book, but because I didn't touch so much on it, and food is such a huge thing for me, I ended up writing a cookbook. But that's by the by. And then emotional. So we talk about things like I worked out how to meditate, but it was never what I thought it was. I always thought it was like sort of sitting in the dirt and chanting and things. And as it turns out, it's not. So, you know, working out what active meditation is, and talking about things like affirmations and visualization. So, yeah, so I wrote kind of everything that I tend to do in my everyday life. To give people an idea of how to have that balance.
I think it's really interesting when you can have that perspective, and you can actually, it's the stuff that you actually think is really easy, and that's exactly how the Grow Project started. You know, just my background was very much in project management and coaching of people, and particularly on multi-million and billion-dollar projects in the infrastructure construction industry. And before that, I'd done project management in other areas as well. And I just thought everybody knew how to set a vision, work out the project management plan to put around that, work out who the resources were, work out where the gaps were, talk to other people, engage the stakeholders, and work and just say no where the line needs to be drawn. And I just thought everybody knew how to do that. And then I applied that in motherhood, similar sort of principles. And then I just thought that was normal. You know, I'd use my decision-making skills, my risk management skills. Like, okay, what's the consequence if something goes wrong here? What's the actual likelihood of it happening? And I was basically using all my business skills. I completely brought them into motherhood. I had complete confidence. I had an amazing support team around me. And I was just like, this is heaven. I am totally happy to be completely vulnerable in this space. I am sky high, and isn't everybody? And so it's really interesting how that can actually give a different perspective to somebody, and how what you and I do on a day-to-day basis, say for our self-care and our health, is actually provide your perspective to other people. And it came up the other day when I was chatting with Nat Gringudis, doctor of Chinese medicine, about how she loves social media. And I thought that was really interesting, because we were talking about how some people could be really cranky about, these people, they have these amazing lives. And it's like, well, you can choose what you take from those things. And if those inspirational moments that those people are sharing actually help you in some way, then that can actually be a good thing. And so I guess, some of those things that you just do in your everyday that people want to know about, maybe you could tell us a bit more about some of those kind of things. If you can hear us. Oh, you can. Did you catch all of that, Leandra? Oh, no. Okay, so maybe you'll come back on. Oh, give me a wave. Can you hear me? Oh, not quite. Okay.
There you go.
Oh,
it's interesting. I did. I heard all of that.
Awesome.
Moving, but I can see you and hear you. There you are. So it's I talk to my friends as well. Like, we're all sort of in the same space. So, like, I don't realize that people still use vegetable oil and people drink Coke. Like, we've just never.
Let me see if I can grab another couple of buttons.
Oh
no! But I think for me, I guess, for example, that's what you'll see a lot of on my Instagram page. And sometimes it'll just be in response to different questions that I've been being asked. I'll just bring Leandra back on. But so for example, somebody asked me, okay, so you don't eat that many grains, for example. So what do you actually eat for breakfast? So on my Instagram page for a week, you actually found 7 days of what I ate for breakfast. And so I'll really use social media in that kind of way, where somebody's asked me a question and they want to know how I'm doing something. I'll actually show them how I'm doing something. And likewise, there's other people that I enjoy watching, and I loved, connecting with Leandra and hearing about what she's doing with all the Cosmopolitan Hippy side of things, because, I'll see photos of Leandra doing yoga with her daughter, and people are like, well, hang on, I'm supposed to be sacred, and doing all this kind of yoga is supposed to be this stuff, like you were saying with meditation, Leandra. But I think it's really interesting when you can show people those things. So can you tell us a bit about, those things every day that you do that others look to?
Yeah, I started off like a little meme called Hippie Mama Problems, which has actually gone really well. So, like, and yes, so like problems like, you get your children to green smoothies, and then you always have to share it. And what else have I done? Oh, like I buy vegetable oils and drink things. Life looks for, and I on Instagram. I realize a bit that, but no, we don't eat a lot of grains, and
we can continue the conversation. Here we go.
Understand why it doesn't like me?
The beauties of live.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Go
Good. Did you hear me talk about hippie mama problems?
I didn't. Did anyone else?
No.
Oh,
okay. Okay. So it's my Instagram thing. Is hippie mama problems? Because I think that being a hippie mama, you have like this special set of problems. So like teaching,
I love it.
Yeah, like teaching your children how to like green smoothies, so that you never actually get one anymore. And trying to explain to your child why they can't drink like a liter of kombucha. It's like, I know it's good for you, but what else? Oh, like I like almost everything in my kitchen has got this tint of orange because I use so much turmeric to like boost my children's immune systems. Yep. My daughter thinks that she thinks kombucha is a fizzy drink and it's her drink. And she got carob for Easter and she just thought it was like the best thing ever. Just like store-bought chocolate. I'm like, yeah, it's just for Christmas she asked for Santa she wanted chocolate Christmas balls. Like that's all she wanted because like there's like what else does it was interesting. Then we took her to see Santa and Santa's gone, oh, what else do you want? And I'm like, shh. No, she just wants chocolate balls. I suppose and again, like she goes to a Steiner school, so we are in a very hippie community, so I forget what life looks like out there. So, you know, like she's never been to McDonald's. She thinks that grilled is like the best place on earth. She gets low carb bun and but yeah.
I think it's also interesting, Leandra, though, then what the expectations they have are as to what's normal, because a lot of people say to me, you know, okay, are you serious that that your child wants to eat olives and sauerkraut?
Yes.
Or green sauce, you know, which in our house is just the blended up herbs that are about to pass. And it's like, yeah, they actually do. And it's for us, it's just what we've always done. And I guess the reason that I share it is not to say, hey, my kids eat this. It's more about this can be the case. It's not necessarily common, but it is actually normal. And when your kids understand why, and like we have the kombucha conversation as well, it's like, yes, honey, yes, it's very yummy. Yes, the bugs in your tummy love it. Yes, you are made more of bugs than you are human cells. But, you know, we don't want the balance going out either. And otherwise, you know, your tummy will be unhappy. So, you know, we are having those conversations in our house as well, because I guess we've chosen to educate about ourselves about those things and understand how they affect our performance. And that was where, I guess, for me, that was my insight. When I started putting food into my first one's little mouth at 6 months old, it was kind of like, what is this? What is it really? And what does it do? And that was very much where my investigations started. So is that part of what you do with Cosmopolitan Hippy, is talk about those different elements and how you can actually bring them to life?
Well, the thing about chiropractic is that it is about the whole person. So, I mean, I really love gut-brain connection. I mean, there's been so much research recently about how the gut contributes to how we think and how we feel and our emotions. And I worked out about 10 years ago that I'm wheat, dairy, sugar intolerant. But I was a vegetarian for a long time, so I carb loaded for a lot of my life. But actually working out how food made me feel was huge. I mean, we do quite a bit of nutrition in chiropractic as well, and that's where I got my light bulb moment, because I used to have joint pain, and there was no explanation for it. So obviously, being a chiropractic student, I was like, oh my God, I'm getting fibromyalgia, and this is it. It's all over for me. But it turns out when I cut wheat out, all of my joint pain went away because it was just all my small joints were just inflamed. So I just think that, you know, good food, it's not hard to do. I mean, it's taken me 10 years to get sort of my diet to where it is now. So, you know, we've tried everything. We've done raw vegan. We went raw vegan for like 3 days because it was just a bit hard. But we've been vegan. We've gone dairy free. We were paleo back in Dublin. So about 7 years ago, like before paleo was really a word, just because I noticed that when we cut grains and dairy out of our diet, we just functioned a lot better. And I liken life without chiropractic to be like you living in a big cotton wool suit. So it's like you can't really feel the world around you. And so, you know, getting adjusted, you know, eating the right foods, you know, taking care of your stress and living this whole cosmopolitan lifestyle hippie lifestyle that I talk about, it's really about connecting you with your outside world. So that's how, you know, you can get things done a lot quicker and a lot better, is because you actually be functioning. So just think about, you know, if you'd had a couple of wines and then tried to work, like think how well your brain capacity is going to be. And they've done studies on this about like driving when you're exhausted and driving when you're slightly drunk. And it's the same when your nervous system's not functioning properly, like you get this fuzzy head. And yeah, I think food plays a huge, like obviously like your enteric nervous system, which is, has to do with your gut, has more nerves in it than your actual central nervous system. So it just tells you how important food is to your brain and your functioning.
Can you tell us a bit more about that part of the nervous system? Because I think it's really interesting to understand those elements. It can really help people to make great decisions about why they might want to make changes, and particularly around food.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because in the gut, like most of your serotonin and dopamine, which are brain hormones, are actually produced in your gut, and they need like a good environment to have them produced. So yes, there are we're about 100 billion cells, say about 90 billion of those are not us. So you've got to think about, there's good symbiotic relationships between them. So there's bad bacteria and there's good bacteria. Obviously, we've all seen the little inner health ads, but and we can't raise all those good bacteria, but there are certain ones that you can raise, and they will symbiotically raise all the other good bacteria. So yes, having good bacteria in your gut makes your gut happy, and allows your body to make serotonin and dopamine, which then go to your brain to then help you think better and help you function a lot better. And
how does food play into that gut health?
Oh, of course, that's really basic. Again, like I think, don't people know this?
Well, but right. Seemingly not.
So
I certainly never used to.
Well, yeah, this is it. Like, it's not something, and it's interesting when people usually come to me, they're like, "Oh, it's food. Like, shouldn't I just know it?" It's like, yes, but it's like me saying just because you eat food doesn't mean you should know about it, and it's like me saying just because I live in a house means that I know about property management. It's like, well, I don't. Like, but yes, so there are certain foods that are really good for you and certain foods that are really not so good for you. So anything that's processed, high sugar, high grains are not what they used to be. We've like bastardized the grains so much, and wheat is the worst. So we're a country that really shouldn't grow wheat because of our climate, but we do. It's one of our biggest exports, and the way we've done that is to sort of change the structure of wheat so much that it's really drought resistant and really tolerant and really easy to grow. But unfortunately, we've stripped all the nutrients from that. So pretty much any sort of like commercial grain you get is just bum glue. It's just going to stick everything together. So all these foods, like processed foods, high sugars, processed oils, like vegetable oil. Like, how do you get vegetable oil from a carrot? Like, think about that. So all of those things, what they do is they really upset the internal baby brain still balance of your gut, and they're very what we call inflammatory foods. So they actually irritate the gut. So think of them like sandpaper on your gut, and what they'll also do is the gut is it's a barrier. So think about it like we are pretty much a tennis ball with a straw through it. And the gut is actually open to the elements as well. So your skin, you notice you can't get anything through your skin because of keratin, and you've got a really good barrier there. The gut, though, you're meant to actually absorb nutrients in. So it's meant to be a very good barrier, but it should also be absorptive. So the way it does this, it's got things called tight junctions. So they sit together like this, or the cells, but the more abrasive and inflammatory foods you have, the more inflammation goes on and the more these gaps start to open up. And as soon as they open up, then that means that food particles can actually get into your bloodstream. And that's not meant to happen. And when it does happen, the body freaks out and you actually get an immune response. So that's how we get food sensitivities. So you'll notice if you have an unhealthy gut, you are going to have more food sensitivities. So the first thing, so removing things from your diet is really good, but you also need to heal that gut as well. Otherwise, you're still just going to be rather sensitive to foods.
So that sensitivity is something that's interesting, because obviously everybody seems to have an allergy or a sensitivity to something at the moment. Can you talk about that? And is there a cumulative effect?
Yeah. So, I mean, you think about it, like our grandparents and our great-grandparents would never have had food sensitivities. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them being that they were exposed to far less chemicals in their environment. So their bodies weren't under so much stress. Secondly, there were far less convenience foods around. So they would actually have to make everything from scratch. So you wouldn't see them buying bread or chips or anything like that. It would all be made at home. So you know what's actually being put into it. And so there are far less Franken ingredients in those sorts of things. So much less hydrogenated oils and fats and things that are just made in the lab. So they weren't getting any of those things. So they're two of the main reasons. And the third being that we have changed the way grains are now. So with science and, you know, how good it is, we have really changed the foods that we grow and how we grow them. So again, like GMO type foods and just crossbreeding of foods to get like the best growing product that we can, because it is more about profits as well. And if you think about it, like back in the day, you'd produce things on your farm and you'd swap them with the farm down the road. So milk would actually come from a cow, instead of the way the dairy industry works now is that, milk still comes from a cow, but what are we doing to that cow to actually get that amount of milk? That's, it's a supply and demand thing. So the less we demand these kinds of foods, the less they're going to need to supply us. So
and sourcing is certainly something, Leandra, that Anthea Kalouros, our health mentor at the Grow Project, spoke about. And that's one of the freebies people actually get. If they jump on our challenge website, they'll actually get that information emailed through to them. And about that sourcing side of things and how important it is that if you are going to have dairy, and if dairy does work for you, then you look at the sourcing side of it. So you're actually looking at quality. And I know there's a few people that if you ask them what their style of eating is, it's I'm not paleo, I'm not whole foods based, I'm not vegan, I'm actually a qualitarian. So I actually look at the quality and the sourcing of my food as the primary source. So if you haven't already, I signed up for the challenge to get our printable, which talks about some of the elements that you've talked through. Then you can jump onto the site, and grab the printable. And it's some of those, I think, Leandra, in the terms of all the stuff on this list is stuff people would know. And like what you were saying, it's about having breakfast, lunch and dinner. Did you eat it today? Did you hydrate? Did you have a bowel motion? Did you chew? How much alcohol did you have? Did you meditate? Did you exercise? Did you get sunlight? We're not talking about rocket science here. What we're trying to do is actually bring awareness to, through ticking each of the boxes and scoring points and just looking at different elements of what fuels you up, what could actually be affecting you both personally and therefore the effect of the growth of your business, because you as a leader aren't doing very well. And I guess we're talking about the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9. So, and putting those two conversations together. Before I jump over to your fuel sources and understanding, what makes you such a pocket rocket, I would love to know, have I missed anything in asking you about the chiropractic side or the Cosmopolitan Hippy side that you'd like to share with us?
I don't think so. I think we might have covered it. I tend to talk on my own little tangents.
So tell us about you personally then. If you had to pick your top 5 fuel sources, and they can range anywhere, they can be absolutely anything, and it can be anything from running a business event to walking dogs to playing with children to Play-Doh, or what are your top 5 fuel sources? And we ask for 5 so that we get a bit of a diversity of understanding about what you're actually doing in your life.
So I actually wrote them down.
Oh, nice.
So I won't show you what I've written. So number 1 would definitely be nourishment for me. So food is huge for me. It's one of the things, my husband's an NLP practitioner, and he was asking me the other day, like, what are the things that make me happy? And food's probably number 1. I get the most enjoyment from seeing like my family eat really good, nourishing foods. Plus I take, a few different supplements as well. And I find that, magnesium to help me sleep. And I always take my probiotics, no matter how much, because I just believe in getting a wide source of probiotics. So I take pharmaceutical ones as well as eating kombucha and sauerkrauts and all those. So nourished food is number 1, like good nourishment for that. Number 2 is downtime. So naps, sleeping, bath time, catching up with my girlfriends for drinks. We make sure, I've got a really good bunch of friends, and we make sure that we catch up once a month, so we can talk about husbands and kids and business and just let go and just be able to, and I've got a bunch of friends that I can actually say, hey, can you take my kids for like 5 minutes while I get this done? So, having that downtime and that support network's really huge. Number 3 is chiropractic, because I don't think I could I don't know how people survive without being adjusted all the time. I'm so glad I married one. I have, so obviously I've had 2 babies, and my daughter's just 12 weeks old, and I was adjusted through my labor even, and adjusted every day up until, and it was just uncomfortable. Like like, because I've had chiropractic for so long, like my body is just rather in tune with itself, and I just feel things a whole lot better. So I don't understand. Like, yeah, so get on it. Just try it. I'm like, and that's the thing. I always say that I might not be someone's chiropractor, but I think if but I've had bad haircuts before, and didn't give up hairdressers. So same thing. Like, try it. I'm obviously a big chiropractic advocate. Number 4 is an outside perspective. So something I have quite a few mentors and friends and things that I can bounce ideas off of. My husband also has his own online business as well. So that outside perspective, because I think getting inside your own head and staying there it's a bit of a scary place sometimes. So we can sometimes be our own worst enemies. And I think, verbalizing things and actually talking to people about things is so important, because, nothing's as crazy as you actually make it to be in your head. And the last one is routine and rhythm. So I have a 3-year-old, and I find that if we have a routine and a rhythm, the day goes much nicer with her as well. So 2 of us working from home, with a baby as well, that routine and that rhythm really helps being. So I'm just about to set alarms on my phone so that it's 9 a.m. we start this session, 11 a.m. we have morning tea, 1 p.m. we have lunch, so that we have that rhythm, we can get into it, because your body thrives on rhythm. So there's this, that we talk about circadian rhythms, and because of the way we live our lives now with lights and technology, and our bodies are not in sync with the rhythm and not in sync with the earth. So we sort of have to build that rhythm and routine now into our days, which is really, really tricky. But I just find that if you get to do that, then you are so much more productive. So if you go like, no, now it's time to switch off the computer. Now it's time to go have some lunch. Now it's time to drink my water. Now it's time to do this. And I'm attached to my phone, so I might as well have an alarm going off to go, oh, better go have some water.
I love your top 5. I connect with those really, really strongly. And a lot of people, particularly the last one, is really interesting to me. I think there can be a real resistance around creating rhythms and routines, and actually understanding why they work. And so, for example, if I get into the real how-to of how do I make everything work, I can show everybody on one piece of paper exactly what our family schedule looks like for the week. Now, does the family schedule actually roll out anything like that every single week? No, it doesn't. But it's like when you've got it's actually the structure which creates the flexibility, because you have expectation, which actually reduces the stress, because stress is only created when the reality and the expectation, go like this. So I think by putting some of those, what I call infrastructure or foundations in place, you actually know what you want to be doing, and you're also keeping to your own priorities. So then you're really clear about what is important to you, and you find me time. Like, how do I have 2 businesses, 2 babies, and do 5 hours of yoga every week that takes me half an hour to drive to and half an hour to drive home from? How do I do that? Well, it's a priority for me. I set it in the schedule. And some weeks it's 8 hours and other weeks it's 3 hours, but on average it is 5 hours a week. So I think that rhythm and routine can be really useful. And it's not going to work for everybody. The other people's top 5 lists that have come on to the 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge will work for other people much more strongly. So the point is that we kind of chat about the different fuel sources that people use so that they can actually feel energized. And I think the other thing that's interesting that you've kind of tapped into nicely there, Leandra, is what the body actually does like, and also the challenge and the reward system that is created in terms of things will take as long as you give them. And if you're on a 50-10 cycle, for example, and you're doing the Pomodoro kind of method where you work 50 minutes and then you break for 10, your productivity is actually massively increased by having a focus period of time and then a break time, which generally should include some movement like washing on the line. And if you think back to the days where you did used to work at home, or you were doing uni at home, and why would some days be more productive? And you could actually link in those theories and reflect in that way. It's just that we fall out of habits as we get older, and we don't move, and we don't nourish, and we don't drink, and we give a lot and we don't refuel. And so I'd love to round out today's session with 3 top tips you have for finding a great chiropractor, because like a great hairdresser, people have had lots of failures, and not everybody does practice like you, is my experience. And so tell me about what they should look for in looking for a chiropractor who is holistic, and we'll look at those areas.
So number 1 would be to like speak to people around you. So I always find that people, you draw people who you like towards you. So chat to them about, do you know anyone that you want to see, that they connect with. The second thing would be to research them. So get on the website, get onto their website. There are different get onto their Facebook page and just start to connect with them that way, because I'd like to say that a good chiropractor will sort of put themselves a little bit out there. And I know lots of my friends do, and have Facebook pages and websites and stuff, trying to tell people about what they're about. And then the third thing is go for an initial consult and talk to them, like actually sit down with them face to face, or even just see if you can give them a phone call or an email. Sometimes I chat to people. But yeah, and just ask them, like, so what is it you do? Like not just techniques, but this is what I want from a chiropractor. Do you think you can actually fulfill that for me? Like, get them to be honest with you, because honestly, people who would come into me and be like, well, I would just like pain management and I just like a crack, I'd be like, that's really great, and yes, chiropractic can do that, and I'm happy to do that for you, but I don't actually want you, like, this is not what I do. So, how about we talk about what I want to do? So, because it's not about getting the chiropractor to conform to what you want. It's about finding that chiropractor who will service your needs, because it's better for both of you that way. So yeah, I would definitely say, like, contact them.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that actually runs across all health practitioners.
Across everyone.
And people, well, that's very true. And people are often completely and utterly shocked. So I remember rocking up to a potential obstetrician for my second baby, and I had a list of questions, and he's like, what? And I'm like, well, I want to understand if we're a good match. And I think also for me, some of the greatest successes I've had, for example, when I'm employing team members, is actually that I have a philosophical alignment. Not that we necessarily agree on the exact way to do things, because I am looking for challenge, but it's that philosophical alignment on the values of how we get things done contextually, rather than the specifics of how we do things. And I think actually going and asking your people, what do you expect of your clients? What do you expect me to do? How often would you expect to see me here? How do you work? What resources am I going to need? If I'm going to get the best results working with you, what do I need to do? And like you say, whether it's a health practitioner or it's a business advisor, anywhere, you can apply those skills. And I think that's a really excellent insight. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
That is all right. But I was going to say that, as a practitioner, I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate somebody saying, this is where I am at, this is where I want to be, can you help me do that? And it gives me the opportunity to say, well, yes, and this is it, or no, and this is who you should go see. So
awesome. Well, thank you for raising our awareness about some of the other pieces in the challenge. So if you haven't downloaded your printable yet, guys, jump onto our Business Fuel Challenge page, which I can see the link is in the box, or jump onto RebeccaNewmanOnline.com.au, and in our events section you will find all the details, and we will send you out the printable, and you can raise the awareness that Leandra spoke of, and be able to see where you might be able to reveal yourself. So Leandra, where can people find you best?
Oh, you broke up. Did you just find where can we find me best?
Yes.
Best is on my website. So it's cosmohippy.com.au, or my Facebook page or Instagram, and you can see my hippie mama problems.
I love it. Thank you very much for joining me today. Of course, if you are part of the challenge, you can win a copy of Leandra's amazing book and discover more information there. So do sign up for the challenge, and we would love to see you sharing with the hashtag 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge, so we can actually give you some love and repost your posts if you wish. But other than that, follow the Grow Project on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and we hope you're having an absolutely amazing day. We'll catch you again in a couple of hours. We've got Kate Kendall coming up this afternoon, and then Lynn Worsley this evening. So thanks, Leandra, for your time, and we look forward to connecting with you all soon. Ciao for now.